Hello, friends and family, and thank you for tuning in to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast. It's me, Duncan Trussell. This is a Monday morning, and this will be the probably 19th attempt I've made to try to record an opening to the podcast, because this is the first Duncan Trussell Family Hour that I've released since my mom died, and I've made multiple attempts to try to say something about that in the opening of the podcast, and everyone has ended in failure, because in every single one I've put on this false bravado or tried to add some kind of thing that I've learned, and it's all lies, because I don't feel particularly brave, and though I think I've probably learned something, I don't understand what it is yet enough to talk about it. I do want to say thank you to all of you for all of the many messages I got after my mom died, all the incredible tweets and emails and posts on my message board. It has been a light in a lot of darkness, and for that, I thank you. I don't want this podcast to just be this constantly maudlin thing, and I don't want to prematurely talk about what it's like to go through the grieving process. So I'm just not going to talk about it until I understand it better, which is something I rarely do, which is why I often seem like an idiot. In the meantime, we've got a lot. I've recorded 2 episodes of the podcast that are in the can. This one coming up with EMIL, and then I've got another one with Natasha Leggero that I recorded. And I'm really excited about one that I'm going to record this weekend with an artist that I discovered recently named Jim Woodring, who is a visionary artist that uses graphic novels to portray this alternate dimension where this being called Frank wanders around. I highly recommend checking out this graphic novel, especially before the podcast comes out. You can start with The Portable Frank. Somebody gave this to me at when I was on tour. Somebody gave me a copy of this and nailed it, because it's exactly what I like. And this guy is channeling something that I haven't seen channeled since Terrence McKenna. It's supremely psychedelic, and it's silent. It's a silent comic, if that makes sense. There's narration from time to time, but mostly silent. It's black and white, and it's basically about this strange being that wanders around this alternate dimension called the Unifactor. And I was so blown away by the thing that I sent an email to Jim Woodring, as I often do to people that I'd like to talk to on the podcast, with no expectation of ever hearing back from them. And he actually wrote me back. And we're going to record an episode this upcoming weekend. So lots of cool stuff happening. Also, I have a new podcast studio room in my house, which I'm working on right now. There's going to be video and better microphones. I don't think the microphones are particularly terrible, but I'm going to really go for it and buy nice microphones. And we're going to end up with a video component on this eventually. Dustin Marshall, who runs and is the CEO and president of Feral Audio, is going to help me set that up. So that's on the horizon. Thank you all for your patience. I know that it's been a long time since a new podcast has come out. And for those of you who haven't unsubscribed or given up on the thing, Hare Krishna, thank you. This grieving shit sucks. It really throws a monkey wrench into the goddamn brain bin. But holy God, I think we've done it. We recorded an opening to the podcast. Okay, so before we get the podcast going, let's do some business. Following is a paid advertisement brought to you by the Hanselin Twins Incorporated.
Moments of history with inspirational speaker Norman Lake. In 1945, the United States of America experienced one of the worst outbreaks of syphilis since the 1924 black hole disaster in Massachusetts. These syphilitic sores that began to afflict anyone of the humping age were so virulent that they did not remain on the genitals, but spread up into the chest from the genital regions. The chest became the new home of syphilis sores. The chest became the final frontier. Syphilitic sores are erotic wounds that I have experienced many times in my life. The pain from a syphilitic sore is akin to having a tiny little demon prodding his pitchfork into your genitals while spraying his salty demon jizz into the open sores. Now imagine that pain if it was not localized on your penile shaft, but it spread all over your upper torso. The pain was so intense for one entrepreneur that in an act of desperation, he went into his infant son's bedroom, tore off his filled diaper, and rubbed it against the sores of his chest. The effect was so soft and so soothing that at that moment, he innovated a new form of clothing that he would call the thank you shirt. A shirt comprised of 80% diaper and 20% shit. The shirt was immediately a success, and so many victims of the horrific outbreak of syphilis were soothed by these not soil-tainted diapers that they wore on their sore-ridden chests. Over time, of course, they realized that the excrement was not necessary, that really the only thing that made them feel better was the softness of the diapers, because everyone at that time had been wearing thorn suits and wool made of steel fiber. These days, it's almost like we're wearing steel fiber again, isn't it? If you put on a regular run-of-the-mill Hanes shirt, it's practically like Satan himself came and spanked your back and chest with his thorny, fanged fingers. No, shirts have really jumped the shark these days. All except for one. One company is still producing shirts softer than a diaper-filled baby bowl. These shirts can only be made in Thailand because of President Barack Obama's draconian industrial rules that don't allow fetal stem cells to be mixed with cotton material in the creation of shirts. But at Shirt Design T-shirts, we aren't held back by these ancient, antiquated rules. The shirts at Short Design T-shirts are so soft. Because they're 20% fetal stem cells and 80% pure Thai cotton, collected from the vulva dander of the beautiful ladies of Thailand. Short Design T-Shirts sponsors this great and wonderful podcast. So why not go to shortdesignt-shirts.com and check out their beautiful shirts. If you decide to buy one, you put the name Duncan in, you will get 10% off. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Norman Lake, and this has been Moments in History.
The Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast is also sponsored by Audible.com. Audible has the largest collection of audiobooks known to man. I am currently listening to Parallel Worlds by Michio Kaku, which is an incredible book about the multiverse, what's called M-theory, membrane theory, and sort of from a physics perspective shows how we are existing in an infinite universe that probably consists of trillions of universes butting off from each other, bumping into each other, and that there could even be the possibility of communicating with beings in these other universes, not just with mushrooms, but with futuristic satellites. So if you like audiobooks and you want to freak out your little brain, if you feel like pulling your brain's pants down and giving it a spanking while it squirms around on the bed, trying to escape but not trying to escape the skilled and deft hand of cosmologist Michio Kaku, Can't even say his name. But he will spank your brain until your brain explodes all over your mattress. So go to audibletrial.com/family hour and sign up for a trial membership. Download Parallel Worlds. And if you don't want to keep getting an audiobook every month, which I don't know why you wouldn't, you can cancel and you get to keep the book. So it's basically a free book. Go to audibletrial.com/family hour, sign up. They send us $15. You get a free book. That's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win situation. And as always, we have a portal for Amazon.com. So if you are buying lamps, window shades, foot creams, fingernail removing polishes, or ear expanders, whatever it is that you're going to Amazon.com for, go to DuncanTrussell.com first, go through the Amazon portal, and we get a small percentage of it. Go do it. Amazon has everything. I do almost all of my shopping on Amazon. I'm about to buy bird tape from Amazon, which I think is just tape. But it's tape you put on your window because birds don't understand reflections. And now that I have bird feeders, a bird slammed into the window today and died in front of me. So I've got to get tape to keep that from happening. I can't have the tranquility of my porch oasis disturbed by suicidal dipshit birds slamming into my window every day. The guilt is fucking horrific because birds are such sweet little things. Love them. Love birds. I'm retired. I'm a senior citizen. Go to Amazon. Go to Amazon.com. Go through our portal. And why not go to DuncanTrussell.com and check out the shop? We have posters, T-shirts. I don't know where the supply level is. I've sort of abandoned ship. We've got to get the shop fixed up again. Get some new shirts in there. But you can go there, and if you really feel like going nuts, you can donate at DuncanTrussell.com and send some green energy to this podcast. But no matter what you do, I hope you'll sign up for the forum, post on the forum. We have a Minecraft server, a book club. It is an authentic community. I invite you to go there and hang out with the amazing multitude of people that go to the DuncanTrussell.com forum. They meet up in meet space, and maybe you could find a friend or a lover there. Also, on a side note, coming up will be what's coming up or what we're planning on doing is a Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast tour. Not a comedy tour, but I'm going to take the podcast on the road. And I'm going to try to fly out some of the guests that have appeared on the show a bunch to different places. I don't know where the tour is going to happen, but it could happen anywhere. So that's coming up too. A Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast tour will hopefully be coming through your city within the next 6 months. That's the plan. Thank you all for listening. Now, please open up that clogged, fluoride-ridden, calcified pineal gland and allow your third eye to go shooting out of the cage of your cranium, spraying and aerosolizing bone fragments as it shoots from your forehead and launches itself deep into the folds of dark matter that compose our cosmos to wherever the true EMIL AMOS dwells, casting his shadowy reflection as the human EMIL AMOS that is incarnating for such a brief time on the earth plane. Whatever I just said means please welcome to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast, the musician from so many awesome bands, Holy Sons, The Grails, a new band, Lilacs and Champagne, or is it Lilacs? I don't know how you pronounce it. Great band. This is a super talented genius, and also one of my longest, ultimate, super best friends in the world. EMIL AMOS. Welcome, Hare Krishna. Thank you, God, for EMIL AMOS.
It's the Duncan Trussell family.
Now that sounds real good.
That worked much better. Worked much better. Welcome to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast. EMIL AMOS.
How's it going, buddy?
It's nice to have you back on the show.
Sure is, buddy. Man, I've been digging through these old cassette master tapes that I made in college of just basically recordings in my dorm room, and I'll listen to them while I'm driving around town. It's a really pretty intense emotional experience in general, but from song to song, it can affect me in so many different ways, and I hit up to 4 different spots that you showed up in these tapes.
Oh, really? What, do I just walk into your room?
It's slightly more composed and psychedelic than that. I was driving along the other day listening to this tape, and it was like this phased, stereo delayed conversation of you talking to a girl in college who was throwing up in the shower. I mean, safe to say you have no idea what I'm talking about, right?
No, I don't remember that at all.
Isn't that incredible that we've finally gotten to a place that is so far away in terms of time that you literally can experience stuff completely objectively. You have no idea that something happened, and all of a sudden, in three-dimensional, sound, you're brought back to this situation that you have no idea happened. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing the kind of low-level time travel that happens with that kind of stuff.
So you're insulting my level of time travel now.
Yeah, your fucking primitive-ass time machine sucks. Doesn't encode emotional states, doesn't encode 3D space.
I have to admit, a lot of times at the medium of audio art, I do feel a little jealous of video. I wish we had more video, but I do sort of know from some experience that video is less forgiving in some ways. I mean, you don't necessarily want to see pictures of yourself sometimes, but I do. Go ahead.
That dissonance that is created by any form of recording yourself is something that I'm surprised hasn't been studied more, or if it has been studied, I'm not aware of it. But I can remember the first time as a kid getting a recording device and hearing your voice for the first time is shocking. to see that kind of reflection, the audio reflection, that's what a recording is. It's your recording a reflection. It's like looking in the mirror for the first time with your voice, and it's everyone, pretty much everyone universally will tell you that they hate the sound of their voice.
Especially the first time, it's horrifying.
It's horrifying, yeah, because there's this distance between the you that exists in reality and the you that you've constructed inside your head. And in a very small way, you get the great gulf that exists between those two entities when you hear your voice or see any kind of video recording of yourself.
Well, I mean, like a photo. Sometimes the internal image of yourself is slightly more correct than the one that comes out on the film. I mean, sometimes it's just a bad angle, you know, and recordings can be like that too.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that is the big question: is what is more accurate? I think it's a kind of seeing people are like, I'm not photogenic. I don't want to see pictures of myself, or I don't want to hear myself. It's kind of like that's one small way that people try to avoid truth. Like truth is like something that you don't want to come in contact with actively.
Yeah, I battle with this concept of like, am I an over sharer or a talking too mucher? Like, sometimes I don't know if I'm giving too much information, but I mean, it's pretty easy for me to reconcile with, because I don't like the opposite. I don't like not sharing anything. I find that like way less attractive.
You mean being secretive and mysterious?
No, honestly, I think that's what people would like to be perceived as when they're kind of not revealing things. But I think just more like when people let self-consciousness get the best of them and think it's more tactful in the end, like to reveal nothing. I find that more offensive than just like oversharing. Like, I mean, obviously we all know the guy that overshares, that's like, worst case scenario or whatever. But in general, I'd rather know somebody's faults like right up front when I meet them, instead of learning about them in a horrible situation way later when it's actually a clutch, situation.
It's such a relief when somebody is like that. I think the ultimate example of that person in popular culture right now is Louis C.K.
Yeah. He's kind of pioneered some sort of new kind of oversharing.
Yeah, and it's like the effect of it is, the what being honest at that level does is it has this. It creates this kind of exorcism in everyone it's a sigh of relief, when you, as a comedian, going and like he does these AMAs on Reddit that are just so hilariously honest about his stand-up and his development as a comic and the way his creativity works and his ability to be self-deprecating about his process is just so weirdly such a relief, because with authors that's something you don't get a lot of. At least I don't know of getting it a lot of time. Like your mind constructs this when it comes to like writing or when it comes to a lot of art, your mind thinks that art just kind of pops out of somebody in the completed state. And there's something that's such a relief when you hear the masters saying their initial drafts of whatever the thing is are shit.
Yeah. I don't want to draw any like hard lines or like sound like I'm committed to one school of thought, but it does tend to be a pattern that when this sounds pretty juvenile, but it does tend to be a pattern that like real artists seem to me to have nothing to lose, like true artists, and then people who are kind of trying to pull off a bit of an ego trick and pose as like basically they're on the hunt for some sort of attention or maybe love that they didn't get. Those people are generally much more concerned, and their art emanates from a place, if you can call it that. It emanates from a place of trying to achieve the this sort of simulation of who they would like to be and sell it to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That's dishonest, and God, what an effort that is. That's got to be such an incredible effort. That's the beginning of the professional.
Yeah, or I would say that's called entertainment, you know. That's the history of entertainment. Every entertainer knows that you put on a bunch of fucking makeup and you use, you know, the most expensive camera lenses and you practice your script tirelessly. I mean, you know, it's no secret. It's fucking movie magic, you know. It's not about like raw poetry or anything, you know.
It's just scary when that doesn't end with cameras. You know, it becomes scary when you come up with you come upon people who have this crafted personality, or kind of, you know, like when you go into public and you realize that certain people are on a fishing expedition instead of just, being around. They're hunting. They're actively hunting something. You know, like you go to a party and you come upon people. Did I ever tell you the time when I was with Natasha, she had this party and some just dripping dope showed up to the party with a bunch of people brought this like fresh into town, ready to jump into the acting game girl. And she had her fucking these oversized cards in her purse with her headshot on the cards and her name and kind of like probably her Facebook address or whatever. And she's like handing these terrible cards out to people at a party shamelessly, like that she was working that night at a party. And it was it was like definitely one of the most shocking Hollywood moments to think, dear God, like aside from the fact that this will never work, it's like it's just bizarre to think that anybody would feel comfortable doing that. I mean, think of that. Imagine if you were imagine you should do that after an Ulm show. Imagine if you had a little bag with pictures of you that you with pictures in your resume, and you handed it to people after the show.
Did you like my drumming? Well, you know, I'm not an expert at this delineation, but you know, in music, you don't have to worry too much about that. In comedy, I do think the atmosphere is pretty different, and part of that is because you're in LA, so that you know the market that you're working in, it works very of a specific pace, and a certain attitude is expected. So that's just part of, like, you know, the situation. You certainly you couldn't come into contact with the same kind of industry here in Portland. You know, probably not in New York. I'm sure it's different in different places, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's that version of business transactions in social life that's just like a very extreme version of it, and there's milder and milder and milder versions of it until it becomes invisible, but it's still there. I guess the more, you know, the more successful predators are also the most stealthy. You know, this is like someone who is just going on one of their first hunts, I guess, and is just sort of stampeding through the forest, trying to catch whatever stupid rare. And the other thing, the other thing that you see in these people is instant tragedy. Like, you see immediately, like, oh no, you're never, ever, ever going to be successful at acting. Like, you're at a party and you can't act like a human. how are you going to act like a human when cameras are on you?
Well, I think the correct reaction is just to merely just pity them. Yeah, just pity them.
Just kill them. Just kill them. Just like immediately, just have some kind of execution device at the party where somewhere in the middle of the thing, everyone just lunges at them like cultists and drags them through the yard and puts them on some stony altar and chops them up and drinks their blood as some kind of...
I think when you're younger, I mean, fuck, at least when I was like a teenager in Chapel Hill, like I sensed that there was like this super competitive environment in the community in music, or maybe just being cool or something. And I still to this day don't know to what extent that was all my projection, because I think a lot of other people were just having fun. They were not competing. I sensed this amazing labyrinth of competition going on. And so, you know, if somebody comes up at a party and starts giving everybody business cards or something, I mean, from an adult point of view, like, that's pretty funny. It's like harmless. There's nothing overall like insidious about it. They're not trying to like, they're not going to like, you know, get people to drink the Kool-Aid or do something horrible with their scheme. They're probably just going to fail, and you kind of, you know, shrug your shoulders and let them go do their thing, right? I mean, in the end, they're not really hurting anything.
They've given you a gift in the end, because in the end they've given you this
what not to do.
Yeah, and not only that, but just this juicy morsel, like this memory that you can always pull up into your mind when you want to contemplate some specific pathetic being. There's something enjoyable about like when you contemplate that. You know, I think that's kind of the gift that people like that give the world, is it's like a little mini entertainment DVD that you can play when you're wanting to loathe something.
I think that I've already told this story in one of like I think it was a Lavender Hour thing, but one time, one of my favorite stories that hopefully in theory gives way to some other sort of insight is that time I was down at your house and I was playing at the gig. You remember that horrible situation?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I can laugh at it. I always can laugh at it, because we were like playing on Melrose, and this was Holy Sons, and we had the classic ponytail, like obese sound dude that was like, oh man, fuck. I didn't mean to tell this story. I wasn't trying to get into this, but we were opening, or like we played after some band called Cosmic Juice, if that kind of sets the stage, on Melrose. And like I was barefoot. I think we had all done some coke, and because we were so bored, and like I was behind this massive black curtain, and the voices were on like quadraphonic delay, like shooting around the room, and there was like 4 people in the audience. It was so sad. And and they like, you're supposed to, oh dude, I've totally fucking told this story.
No, you haven't told this story.
I think I have. Like they announced Holy Sons on this like huge delay, and we're supposed to be playing like some opening like tough guy riff as the curtain comes up, and we're just standing there in total silence, in bare feet, and the curtain just raises up, and we're just looking at the audience, just like, holy shit, how did we get here, you know? And anyway, I was down there after the show, and we stayed up all night. I think we were getting fucked up, and kind of, I remember I was perpetually hoarse, and I had like gallons of water, and I was just chugging them, and we stayed up till like 5 or 6 just talking about, I hadn't seen you in a long time. And your girlfriend at the time was kind of she was a comedian, and she was kind of joining in on the conversation. And I told this story, one of my favorite stories, about how my buddy opened up for Pete Yorn in LA once. Do you remember this story?
No, I remember the night, and I remember talking the whole night, but I don't remember the story.
This is one of my favorite stories, and it seems like we gravitate towards these stories, and I'm not trying to build it up. It's not like some amazing situation, but for me, I love this kind of shit. And I feel like I've told this before, but so my buddy, his name is Zach. He plays in Grails. He was in another band before that showed up in LA to play this. I think it was at the Troubadour, whose actual, like, you know, credibility had long since passed by this point. And so he goes in, they set up to play. They see that some guy named Pete Yorn is playing next, but at the time he had just been launched as this upcoming superstar. Nobody had really heard of him. And so they literally end up playing to an empty room. I don't know if you've ever done that. Literally to an empty room. And so they get off stage, and they are just really confused and, you know, inevitably just bummed out. And all of a sudden, you know, somebody comes out and announces Pete Yorn's coming on, and the entire room fills with a crowd of people, all in these kind of like the same leather jacket. And so my friend is high, and he's wandering through this crowd. The guy hasn't started yet, and he's like he starts looking at the people going up to one after the other. He's like, so what's this guy all about? Is he any good? And everybody's just kind of like, yeah, I think he's good, you know. And he just feels really suspicious, and eventually finds out through one of them that the entire crowd has been hired to come and watch the show. They've been hired to watch the show.
Wow.
So, and you know, at the time when I was younger hearing this story, I was like, it was like the fucking Wizard of Oz, like, curtain had been pulled back, and I was like, no fucking way, what? Like, what the fuck? And so I'm telling this story, and your girlfriend at the time is like, she goes, yeah, it's called a clack.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, clack.
And I was like, what the fuck is a clack? And she's like, well, you know, in the old days, it was called being a shill. You're just a shill, and a group of shills is a clack or some shit like that. And I was just psychedelic. Like, I was blown away. I was just like, you're telling me you do this stuff? Like, this is normal? You hire audiences? Like, of course, you know, maybe I look like an idiot because I guess TV shows can operate like that. Like, I'm not really sure if they need people in the crowd. Maybe that's normal. But, like, you know, an underground rock show. Like, and I've had this conversation with a really good friend of mine in New York named Cindy. And she told me other stories like this in New York where she went to a fake, see if you can process this, a fake ironic grindcore show in a designer garage that was posed to look like everything was gritty and intense, and there was a bunch of Norwegian models there on heroin, and the people didn't even play in a grindcore band, but they were like sort of like, you know, it was like they were hired to put up a cultural display.
Yeah, no. See, this is interesting, man, because within this, this is something that popped up on my message board. Someone asked, is there really an Illuminati? And, you know, is there secret societies? Is there groups of people that manipulate the masses? And I think these things, just the fact that there's language for it, that you have a group of shills is a clack, and that you have, not only do these things exist, but symbol systems to articulate it in the form of language exist. This is just for bands. This is just so that, a band can have some kind of illusionary success that might somehow lead to that weird chain reaction that becomes real success. But if this is happening on a small level for bands and clothing lines, where all you have to gain is money, how much more would it be happening at the level of government or power, where you actually have global dominance that you can gain from fooling the masses? How much more advanced has it gotten? How much more sophisticated has it gotten? How much, you see it in the election process for the United States president, where they'll bus people into town hall meetings that are sympathetic to the speaker, or they'll try to shoot it in a way that it seems more filled up to trick and manipulate people. But then how much more once you become president? How much more when you're running a government does this happen? At what level does it happen? I think that's where the press comes in, and the media comes in. And that's when you start getting like Fox News journalists, and you get that same sense of being in the presence of a chameleon. Something seems off. I know what you mean when you go to places where there's shills. Like when you go to like I've been on I don't remember what the show was. It was some stupid show it was a TV show, some dumb panel show, and the audience is a paid audience. So you kind of look out at this crowd of people. No one really wants to be there. They're making $15 to sit in this shitty show and listen to crap jokes. But it's like you get this specific sense of like, kind of like the same feeling maybe you get when you're around a corpse. Like, this used to be a person, but this is definitely not a person. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a corpse audience. But you get that same feeling when you're watching the news. You get that same feeling when you see like these Fox correspondents and you realize, oh, wait, these aren't journalists at all. These are some kind of propaganda spokespeople. I think they call them pundits, who are manipulating the perception of the masses with the intention generally of leading us into war. It's that same feeling. My point is, it's every single level of the spectrum. You have these goddamn clacks and shills.
It's true. I think I've already cited this before, but I'm pretty sure I have. But it was called Operation Mockingbird, a pretty infamous CIA operation. I heard was quoted around 1962. They had at least 500 writers working out in the field of just various publications in America, writing all sorts of articles that just argues, types of points that become popular thought. It could be the idea that Jack Ruby was totally insane, and so never trust anything he ever said because he was completely insane. And it could be this Popular Mechanics article that my friend read and was telling me about that said, exactly why the Building 7, fell, explaining that, nothing insidious, no lava was found, or, just stuff like these. So if you compute that there's 500 writers in 1962 on the payroll, how many writers are there now?
Right. That's exactly right. And that's why it's always amazing to me when people, and I think there's less of them these days, but when people are like, oh, you conspiracy theorist, psh, all that pish-posh bullshit, it's like, well, everything about it's completely logical. It just makes sense. I was on my message board. The point I was trying to make is, if you want to see that there's secret societies, just look at skateboarding. It's like, when did people start skateboarding? How long ago was that? Like, when did it start? It's started in what, the early 70s?
Sure, that sounds about right.
And it, it's like these like people who barely know how to. Someone just got the idea to put wheels on a ski, basically, and it's, You know what I mean? These big, thick fucking 2x4s with roller skates on the bottom, and they're just kind of barely able to make it down the street. And then cut to now, when you watch YouTube videos of skateboarders these days, they're like practically teleporting. They're like, you know what I mean? The boards have advanced. The materials have advanced. Every single aspect of the thing in an incredibly short amount of time has evolved to the point where what they're doing compared to what it used to be is an entirely different thing. So in the same way, again, what do you get from skateboarding? You get, I guess, the rush of skateboarding. You get to, like, fuck sweaty tattooed chicks who hang out at half pipes. You know what I mean? You get, like, acid, good supplies of acid, and, like, that's what you get out of skateboarding. Maybe you get a deal if you're really good and you get to be a famous athlete, but just that's the reward for that. What do you get? What's the reward for politics? What's the reward for bankers? What's the reward for people who could control the planet? Well, the reward is anything you want. You want to get a heart transplant for your friend? Bam! You got a heart transplant for your friend. You want to see what it's like to fuck a freshly hung Ukrainian prostitute in the asshole? Bam! You've got it, brother. You get anything you want from if you were able theoretically to dominate the planet. And as part of it, the first thing anyone who studies history is going to see when you see the beheadings of kings or the stringing up of Mussolini or Hitler's suicide in an underground bunker, or whenever you see the death of a tyrant, what you witness there is like, oh, that's an amateur who fucked up. He stood in the forefront and let people know that he was the leader. So then you would evolve. You would realize, oh, obviously the thing here is not for anyone to know that you're the leader. That's the last thing you want these fucking monkeys to know. You want them to think other people are the leaders, you know? So, yeah, I think that there's a high likelihood that there are secret societies or forces at work that are controlling and dominating the entire planet. And
hey, let me ask you, what you been watching on TV, bud?
16 and pregnant.
I was trying to write a fucking essay on something like this in Whole Foods. I think it was yesterday, and there was like two people dressed within the aesthetic confines of what you would call like punk. You know, they were punk looking.
Yeah.
And they were behind me, and I had to leave because I couldn't concentrate, which is fine. But I couldn't help like being infiltrated with their weird, like, obsessive conversation about like what are the TV shows you've been watching the most? And the guy's like, well, I just love Entourage so much that I've seen all seasons 9 times in a row, and I'm ready to go back for more, or something, just to pick up on the subtleties, you know, or something. It just makes you, the experience of walking down the street can be, and I'm really not trying to be dramatic here, but it can be nauseating in the official original definition that Sartre was using when he wrote that book. You know, it's like I'll be turning a corner and I'll just look in the window of Ross Dress for Less, and I'll just see a mother like with a concerned look on her face as she's trying to pick out like just this horrible like flower vest for her daughter, and I want to fucking puke sometimes, like out of sadness, like I don't know why. It's not like just, and I'm not even being judgmental. I'm just talking about a wave of confusion and nausea that comes over me when I see what we do with our fucking lives, and it scares the shit out of me sometimes.
God damn right it's scary. It's scary as fuck, man. It's like you're walking around and like you're seeing all these people engulfed in various degrees of of materialism and burning up in their own ways. It's beyond shocking. It really is. Nausea is the exact right word for it, because you just think, oh, like that's, 4 acid trips less, and I'd probably be standing in a fucking Ross picking out khaki pants and sandals for my upcoming trip to Vegas with my bros.
I've totally thought that before. I remember as a teenager getting to a point where after enough acid, like looking back and being like, fuck, who the fuck would I have been? I don't like that guy. What, like I could feel like the way that anger and certain types of emotional insights were being processed in a whole different way now. Like, does that make sense? Like when you're a sober guy, when you're a teenager with all this fucking testosterone racing through your bloodstream, like there's a way that it does, like society and everybody is kind of like those feelings tend to get routed in a certain way, and you start tripping every other day or whatever, and it starts to demythologize things, but it just knocks you off that path. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of other ways that you get knocked off the path, but it's like the nausea that you're talking about is kind of it's the vertigo of your subjective universe, the membrane of your subjective universe temporarily rubbing up the membrane of another subjective universe, of which the laws of physics are completely different than your laws of physics. The moral structure. Oh my God, dude, as an example of rubbing up against these psychopaths, I was at my mom's funeral in Georgia, and this is we didn't even have our ashes yet. This was just like a ceremony, I guess, in this beautiful cemetery with birds flying around. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful day, but one of my family members, it was his job, like he had been picked to speak, kind of this patriarch, and he's this fundamentalist Christian, right? And he comes out, this is my mom's funeral, and he comes out and he's like, Deneen was a psychoanalyst, and she tried to psychoanalyze me from time to time, and anybody who knows me knows you don't do that. Now, I wonder if she's up there in heaven trying to psychoanalyze God. That wouldn't be a good idea.
What the fuck? Jesus Christ.
It was stunning. This is not a roast. This is somebody's, you know what I mean? This is somebody's funeral. And like he's written, he's probably been writing this fucking speech for 20 years. But like, just waiting for this moment for her to die so he could kind of fumble into the cemetery spotlight and deliver this passive aggressive speech. But it's like underneath it, because you can't say at a funeral what you want to say. What he wanted to say was, there's a very good possibility, based on the paradigm that I exist in, that Deneen is right now burning in hell. He couldn't say, but my point is that person's subjective universe, that universe that guy lives in, that's a whole different universe than the one I'm in. That universe is, in my universe, can only hurt each other. Like there's no way for our universes to come together. We repulse each other. Like I'm repulsed by him and he's repulsed by me. And I think that's what that sense of nausea is this kind of like just this feeling of suck that comes when you get too close to someone else's paradigm. And where it gets really weird is it's like, which one's right? Which one's right?
I guarantee you which one he thinks is right. I mean, he probably thinks, because this generally tends to come with people of that stance, but like he probably thinks he's the most polite guy in the world. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he probably thinks you're really off color. You know what I mean? But like, look what the fuck happened, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you sort of, yeah. The curious thing about it is, it seems like there are varying degrees of lucidity that people, it seems like that's the spectrum, right? It's like varying degrees of lucidity. It's like deeper. It's kind of like, how much have you bought into the conditioning? You know, like how much have you subscribed to the popular paradigm? Well, and the more, it seems like the more that you've subscribed to that paradigm, the more angry and entitled and malicious you become. And the more that you've disconnected from that paradigm to some degree, the more open and interesting you become. But the weird thing is, the more that you disengage from the paradigm, there's some place where you can't keep disengaging. Like, you've got to engage. You can't just decide green lights mean stop.
Yeah, I mean, I generally just wonder, you know, or tend to think the ultimate question is like, to what extent is this individual fueled by rabid insecurity, and how has that forced them to, whatever ratio it is, hide within the constructs of their conformist, you know, tendency. And so, you know, how have they sublimated this raging anger and bitterness, you know?
Right. Yeah, right. And insecurity, you know, what exactly is that? Well, how would you define insecurity?
God, you know, it seems like it makes the fucking world go around. Doesn't it? It seems like one of the most motivating factors in human life. Like, my favorite, a lot of people talk Alan Watts, blibbity blah, this and that, but my favorite quote of his is a dark one. And it's when he says that most likely every good-natured deed is done in the attempt to escape persecution.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude.
That's hilarious. That's
Totally.
hilarious. Yeah, you're always trying to run away from the persecution that he's talking about. It's it's like the persecution isn't necessary anymore. It's in our heads. So it's like we're persecuting ourselves. We're putting the pitchfork to ourselves all the time. You know, stand in front of a mirror naked. The majority of people who do that, and there's just this sense of like, ugh, look at that fucking thing. Oh, fuck me, man. That's me. Fuck me. And that's insecurity by definition. That's insecurity, and then that makes you run away from the mirror. We're always running away from the mirror.
Dude, that is the embodiment of what Alan Watts was trying to say, especially with that book, The Wisdom of Insecurity. But, you know, a lot of people want to make Alan Watts into a leader type, but I don't see him as a leader at all. I don't think that's what he was doing. I think, you know, there might have been times where if you read the book, the biography about him, it basically says that there were times that he kind of, this is going to sound controversial, but he actually ended up milking religion for what it would bring him, depending on how lazy he was that year or what he was doing. But it said that he became a Christian in order the book says in order so that he could like live for free, basically as a monk, you know. But he had a family, and the church would support him. So he defected from Buddhism, became a Christian for like this period of time, so he could kind of have a free ride, and then he went back to Buddhism. He wasn't the person that people try to make him out to be. He was just a fucking dude living life, hustling just the same as most people. He just had a very special insight into a type of thought that hadn't even broke in the West, and so he obviously brought a lot of it over. I mean, Aleister Crowley had already done a lot of that stuff, but it hadn't broken into the, bohemian circuit. And so they made him into this thing. But like the Lord of the Rings, it was made into a mythology of the hippie culture. And I don't know if you've read about it, but Tolkien, he hated hippies with a passion. He tried to get Lord of the Rings not published again, I think was the story at one point, because he didn't even want them to have their hands on it.
See, this is one of the funniest things ever, is you get the conduit, and the conduit channels the energy, whatever the energy is. The energy's so potent that it comes to life in the minds of the people who've come in contact with it. And the ownership thing, it's like, forget it, motherfucker. You don't have ownership of it. You were just the conduit for the thing. You laid the egg, and everybody else is duplicating and sitting on that egg in their own way and hatching whatever weird birds they think that result from it. And it's a funny fucking thing when the Tyler Durden effect happens in whatever way, like in Fight Club, where the shit just like, you channeled a thing, the thing popped out. Now you set this neurological fire in the brains of anyone who came in contact with whatever the thing was you said at the time, and you just got to deal with that. That's the thing. Once the genie's out of the bottle and you're the bottle, you don't control the genie anymore. That's funny that Tolkien's like, no, bring it back where I can control it. It just goes to show that the vessel for the message is secondary to the message itself. Who fucking cares if Tolkien hated goddamn hippies, That guy's just a printer. It's like, I don't know how he wrote Lord of the Rings. You read that book and it's like he channeled it. Like, I don't know how anyone could have written that.
I remember when Star Wars came back out not so long ago, or whatever it was. I guess it was one of the sequels, and I was watching some sort of bonus feature where George Lucas is being interviewed, and he said, I thought this was fucking amazing, but he's like, they get him in this interview where he probably had 5 minutes, and they're like, so how do you feel now that this is all said and done? And his response was, honestly, I look at my life and I've turned into Darth Vader. I thought that was fucking amazing that he said that. He was just being completely honest. He's like, I've fucking sold my soul,
Well, yeah. You're dealing with. Here's the bottom line. The thing that you're riding around in is, it goes bad. It's like an open can of Spam. You're gonna molder.
That's my favorite part of the story, though. That's what humanizes the hero's journey, is the fall from grace. If you don't have the fall from grace, you got a Hollywood ending, and that's not worth much.
No, that isn't. It's not. It's certainly not interesting, and it's definitely it's definitely really impossible. Anyway, it's impossible. You're not going to get a Hollywood ending, and maybe that's kind of maybe that's the emerging thing. This emergent over confessionalism or whatever you were calling it. It's this exceeding truthfulness is kind of coming to some way of coming to terms with it. It's just letting go of as much as you can, letting go of this. It's what Ram Dass calls phony holy. It's like just putting all that down. I think as soon as people get over this idea that imagine if like you went on the internet and you printed out a William Blake poem and you started like falling in love with your printer.
This thing is amazing.
It's a genius. This printer is so incredible. And that's what we do with celebrities, and that's what we do with writers, and that's what we do with musicians. We get people fall in love with a printer. And then inevitably when you come in contact with the printer in an intimate way, it's always going to be disappointing to some degree. it's like it's in this, like, if you look at it, it's the exact same thing, man. A printer, a plastic piece of shit. Who cares? This is a it's not exciting in the same way some fleshy old fucking neurocomputer that happened to open up enough to channel some kind of hyperdimensional truth. It's like you can't fall prey to the idea that printer is the same as the message that it printed out.
Yeah, but everybody wants to, time and time again, right? Like, it's like you could be preaching the demythologization or whatever of, just made that one up, of, like, killing the Buddha, but they would just make that the new fucking bumper sticker, wouldn't they?
Well, right. I mean, exactly, because we've got in the same way that you've got people who have feet fetishes, you've got these goddamn leader fetishists, and it's like, no matter what happens, they're going to want to, like, suck the thing's dick. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the thing, what it is. They just want to, like, get their mouths wrapped around that leader cock and get their fucking mouths just filled with leader jizz, because they don't want to deal with the terrible and terrifying truth that they can be conduits too, and that they, as much as anybody else, could open themselves up to this thing and let it come blasting out in whatever way. Nobody wants that.
Right. It's like saying, well, now I've really got the right outfit on. Like, now I really got matching, shoes and, whatever,
What do you mean?
I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, look, I think that we're this is like this is the funny thing when people get shocked. Like, I can't believe that Bill Clinton put a cigar in that girl's pussy. It's like people get shocked by these events that happen from the meat computer. And the meat computer is just this, like, shuffling, horny thing that, like, from time, or, Martin Luther King was a womanizer. Gandhi, that Gandhi would lay in bed with underage girls. Or, like, you'll inevitably hear these stories of all the world leaders and this terrible, thing that they did. And yet somehow it continues to surprise us. It continues to be shocking, even though if you make a list of all the great mystics, you will find this dark underbelly. Oh yeah, man, he would catch chihuahuas and finger their buttholes in between speeches.
Oh man, I knew a guy that did that.
but it's like that. This is the hilarious, probably the residual effect of us having to have tribal leaders, and having to, like, have this kind of idolatry so that we could fully and successfully imitate successful behavior mechanisms. The end result has been this kind of hero worship and the confusion of the vehicle or the printing mechanism for the message itself. The Om show, speaking of channeling things, when I went to see Om, there is this sense of some kind of energy being channeled. It's not like normal music. It's like you guys are hitting these weird resonances that has attracted a bizarre crowd, man. And, like, there was people in the audience yelling out, like, weird pagan Roman terms, like,
I think those were song titles.
Oh. Yeah, of course. That's, of course, I'm so dumb. There was some, like, there was, like, a tiny little, like, menacing looking Latino guy covered in tattoos who kept yelling out, "Satanus! Satanus!" Is Satanus the name of one of your songs?
No. We would never have a song that was like literal in that way, like overtly dark like that.
No, that's what I figured. So that's what so right. So that guy was just yelling out satanic phrases, and it was like, yeah. So you guys have got this following of people who are like into Satanism.
I know nothing about that I can think of. Oh, wait a second. Fuck. The tour manager was meeting a satanic guy that night.
Oh my God, that was probably the guy. Yeah. I mean, look, Satanism is so silly anyway, but it really was like, it was a curious group of people. You guys are doing something that's very weird.
He was. I mean, this has nothing to do with the band. I'm remembering now that the tour manager was meeting a guy that had just come from some sort of private meeting with Charles Manson, and so he was really worried about the guy being kind of a freak. But how do
you get a private meeting with Charles Manson?
You have. I don't really know. It has something to do with being able to get, prison access. I don't know how you achieve that. I guess he ends up probably using like his one meeting that month with you or something, because you've been deemed important to him or something.
God, that would be fun. God, if I could get Charles Manson to do this podcast. That would be you know what? If Charles Manson, if anybody out there can get Charles Manson to do my podcast, I don't know what I'll do for you, but I would do something. I'll do almost anything to get Charles Manson on this son of a bitch. That would be so fun. Charles Manson interviews are the greatest interview. Like, I'll go back and just watch Charles Manson interviews for relaxation.
Yeah, it's usually right before bed. It's either Manson interviews or like ghetto taser videos.
Oh, ghetto taser videos are gold.
It's so soothing. It's so relaxing.
Why is that? Why is it? It's why it's so fun, man. Because like when you watch, especially, I am assuming you're talking about the Atlanta mall cop taser videos.
Oh yeah, totally. I've seen about 3 of those.
Yeah, man. Those are the reason it's so cool is because you're watching this like instantaneous shift in states from this kind of like screaming, super hyper aggressiveness to paralysis and like falling over like a tree in the woods, just like going from. And then the shock of getting tased always shuts them up. I
mean, we're not. I really don't think we're being quite as crass as we sound. But I mean, like, it is kind of an interesting personality shift. Almost like a lobotomy or so. It's just like, okay, I'm not that person anymore.
Yeah.
In like 0.2 seconds.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing to watch. Taser videos. If you know what, someone out there should see if they could cut together some kind of montage of taser videos with Charles Manson talking underneath them.
God, one of the worst was the Tased Wizard at this is not even funny. Like, I feel like so stupid that I'm even mentioning this, but the guy, he was dressed up in a wizard costume at like an early Coachella, and he clearly was tripping because he had just taken off his wizard outfit, and he was running around naked with the world's smallest penis.
Yeah.
And they just continually tase him over and over. I mean, let it be known, like, I derived no enjoyment from watching that. I just couldn't stop watching. I didn't want to watch it, but I couldn't put it down,
Well, I mean, you're watching, if the Guinness Book of World Records had an award for the world's worst trip, that's pretty much, if you're going to have a bad trip, that hits every single facet of a bad trip.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so wrong to see the phrase "world's worst trip" and click on it. Is that proof of being a low quality human being? Maybe.
I will. If so, then I'm dirt, because I like something about watching that and just thinking, like, you know, those moments when you start getting paranoid when you're tripping, you start thinking people are watching you, and then like the trip really starts taking effect and you start thinking like, oh, wait, what's keeping me from completely losing my shit right now? Nothing. Like, why wouldn't I just lose my shit? And then you start having these images of like, oh yeah, this has happened to me just on edible marijuana on an airplane, where I've eaten marijuana one morning. For some dumb reason, I ate marijuana cookies and went flying. And like, I can remember sitting on the plane and thinking like, I am about 4 inches away from starting to scream at the top of my lungs right now.
I kind of almost did that once. I was in a similar situation, and I actually did the thing where, like an animal, I started to dart out of my seat and leap over the guy next to me, and he just looked at me like, "Oh shit, dude, what's going on?" And it was at that moment that I realized what happened to Dave Chappelle when he tried to land that plane. Remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It's just a panic attack, you know. That's all it is, you know.
It's a panic attack, but in the age of technology that we exist in, if you have a panic attack that's bad enough, not only will you like cause yourself to get arrested on an airplane, but there's like a 95% chance that phones are coming out and somebody's going to film you on the airplane screaming at the top of your lungs, and it's going to get 17 million downloads. So it's like you have added to panic attacks these days is if you have a panic attack in public, you're definitely going on the internet. Definitely.
You know, my friend is a pilot for private jets that rich people own, and he's kind of a brilliant guy. But we were having dinner the other night, and he was telling me. I guess I was asking him about the dirt, you know, of like what really goes on with pilots, you know, stupid questions like why does everybody say they're all alcoholics or something, and he was saying, you know, it's pretty common for one pilot to sleep, you know.
Yeah.
You did you know this? I guess it's like normal. You take shifts, one sleeps, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, and so he told me about this one time where he woke up at the wheel. He woke up at the wheel where he was supposed to be the one flying, and the other dude, he turns around, the other dude is, you know, sleeping in like a cot or something. And they were in the middle of a fucking storm. And like a thunderclap or something woke him up like near his head or something. And I just thought, God, is that like some sort of weird metaphor for society? You know, that like that the plane's really flying itself and nobody's at the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, that is right, man. Yeah, that's exactly that. I think that is a great metaphor. I think that's a great way to put it. There's obviously gears grinding away in our subconscious that are, or it's kind of like, yeah, there's definitely something, and I think Carl Jung talked about this, that the all of society has the collective unconscious that sort of has its own hidden agenda going on that we're all just little bits and pieces of.
Yeah, that's what the phrase deep politics means, actually. To some degree, that's like it means that underneath the layer of consciousness there is a agenda or a motivation that's guiding everything that people are literally not aware of. I think it's a fascinating term.
Yeah, no shit. And that, with deep politics, man, if there's that concept, then the CIA has got sensors that they're trying to use to peer deep underneath the skin to understand what it is. What the fuck is it? What are they? Because that's where it gets weird, because then you've got all of politics and all of law and all of the various aspects of power are just the reflection or the backside of some other thing that we can't turn around to look at. It's like looking at your own nose. Deep politics, the collective mind, hidden agendas, ghetto tasing videos, small cock wizard, private meetings with Charles Manson. This is a great podcast, EMIL.
Well, we can do it more often. We always say that, but I've been so fucking busy. But I'll tell you what, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I will be moving to New York for a little while. I think I told you that.
I don't think you mentioned that, but that's awesome.
Yeah, it's not like any sort of major goal is expected to be accomplished.
You don't get tased.
Yeah, totally. But I was thinking that what we should do if we do get the time is remember one time you were saying to me that you weren't really sure about playing shows with a rock band because you thought it might be a little weird to have to follow like something really loud and shit.
Yes.
Well, I was thinking, depending on when it works out, we could just do like a small string of solo shows where it's just both of us, and it's not like it seemed like it could gel a little better.
Oh yeah, man. Look, I have an idea for at least one show because I'm going to go on tour with the podcast, not with stand-up. I'm just going to go on the road and do the podcast on the road.
Definitely.
So that would totally work because you could just be the guest on the podcast.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
When are you... that's probably going to be kind of far off, huh?
I don't know. No, that could work for New York. I mean, I was just there at the Knitting Factory in Brooklyn. It was incredible, and Brooklyn's incredible. And it was the first time that I've ever wanted to live in New York. Like, it made me want to move because it was so fun. And even though I was only there for, 5 hours after I got in. But I think that's something that we could definitely do. You could do you know what I mean? You do music before, and then afterwards we do the podcast, or vice versa. Either way, I don't know what the order is, but yeah.
No, I think that sounds just about right what you just said. But and my friend, one of my labels owns the Knitting Factory, so like we could totally set something special up.
I think that'd be a blast, man. We should do that. Where are you performing, or do you have any shows coming up where people can come and see you?
In about 2 weeks, we're going to play Austin Psych Fest, which is this thing, that I guess they have a bit of a reputation for getting like old school, kind of rare performances from. Like we're going to be playing with Rocky Erickson,
Wow.
from 13th Floor. Yeah.
Who is this? Ohm is playing, or Holy Sons?
This is Ohm, and we're playing with, a selection of some kind of like rare old school psych bands from the 60s and stuff like that. And then we go to Australia, and then we're planning the next... I think I'm going to be doing a bunch of East Coast tours. So we're planning those for the other bands too, but it's pretty complicated, so if we're going to do anything, we should start talking about it. Yeah,
okay, cool, man. Well, we're definitely going to do something. And then, for those of you wondering where EMIL's going to be performing in Australia, where's a link where people can get your dates?
The easiest stuff nowadays, since the tragic fall of MySpace, was now. I mean, you have to just go to the Ohm Facebook, Grails, Holy Sons, Lilacs, and Champagne. All those Facebooks is where it's the only other place where we can quickly throw dates up. So everything's there.
Well, there you go. Well, Go see or any of the various incarnations of EMIL's music, people, because it is mind-melting. And definitely I like the way that you, when I mentioned the whole Satanism thing, you kind of like you did a little sidestep. So anyway, go and probably just because it's embarrassing, because it's not in any way related at all. But go see EMIL perform. Thanks for doing the show, man.
Yeah, we'll talk really soon.
Thanks for listening, everybody. This sounds like shit because my microphone just died. That was EMIL Amos. My mom just died too. Now enjoy the song Cruel and Unusual from the Holy Sons album Criminals Return. Buy it on iTunes. Thanks for listening. Hare Krishna.
I crane my neck against my will. If life is dark comedy, it mocks me still. This road I'm on is full of wrecks, and I can't seem to turn my head away. It seems cruel and unusual, or just unusually cruel, God, to derive entertainment from setting up a fool. But his boredom is no higher, and I'm bored of his design. Just 'cause these days fucks, he's gotta fuck with mine. But mine's not lit, it's lit too bright. I can't decide if I'm abandoned or just held way too tight. That's just a way to avoid unity. Smash yourself into 1,000 again. That's just a way to avoid unity. Smash yourself into 1,000.